in the Great Thousand World, in the extreme northern lands, in the Wandering Realm, within the Martial Realm, inside the Tao domain of the four profound continents. Whoosh, whoosh. Above the horizon, countless figures swiftly passed by, with thousands of people busily at work. Since the establishment of the Martial Realm, it has been operating at high speed in this manner. These individuals swiftly delivered the latest intelligence and battlefield updates surrounding the Martial Realm and executed the massive number of orders sent out from here. However, today, a new task was assigned to several 9 Great Supremes and over 100 middle and lower-level Supreme powerhouses. This order came from the Mapping Department, which itself received the order from another person, Martial Ancestor Lin Dong. This task was to build a large-scale teleportation array, which, it was said, would connect to an ordinary continent nearly 100 billion miles away from the Martial Realm. Thus, when these elders received this task, they were quite troubled. After all, the concept of 100 billion miles was clear to them. Such an enormous distance would cross over hundreds of continents. Even Earth sovereigns would need to travel non-stop for nearly a month and a half to cover such a distance. This was the vastness of the Great Thousand World, a scale clearly depicted on the massive map in the Mapping Department. In the mountains of the Tao domain, a towering peak was cut in half, forming a nearly 10,000-foot wide circular plaza. The teleportation array Lin Dong had requested was being laid here. At this moment, hundreds of supreme powerhouses were busy on this flattened peak. Using vast spiritual and spatial energy, they were carving a massive triple-layer teleportation array, thousands of feet in length. This was something Lin Dong discovered in the relic map he obtained when leaving the Great Thousand Assembly. It seemed to have been intentionally left by the Primordial Divine Clan. Lin Dong didn't know whether they were helping him or simply doing him a favor. The teleportation array he found in the relic map was called the Frog Leap Formation, a rather strange and somewhat comical name. Lin Dong didn't have much time to study it because, as soon as he returned, he headed straight for Nine Thunder Continent, where Xiao Yin and Xiao Jiao were in seclusion. Therefore, the array was entrusted to Tang Xinlian and the others to research slowly. In midair above the peak, Tang Xinlian and the others hovered. In Tang Xinlian's hands was an ancient formation scroll, the Frog Leap Formation Lin Dong had found in the relic map. Tang Xinlian, do you think the Frog Leap Formation can be completed today? Ing Xiao asked. Yes, we're almost finished. Tang Xinlian nodded and said, I don't know who created this formation, but it's truly terrifying. If we knew the coordinates, I suspect we could leap directly to an extraterritorial world. It can bypass all known spatial obstacles except the blast membrane. Extraterrestrial world. Ing Xiao was momentarily stunned. That's right. The Frog Leap Formation has 3 layers, each capable of sending someone to different distances. The first layer can leap up to 1 billion miles, which is already beyond what most teleportation arrays can do. The second layer has a limit of 50 billion miles, and the third layer can reach 250 billion miles, enough to reach anywhere in the Great Thousand World. What's most amazing is that the leap is almost instantaneous. Unlike the spatial passages we've seen before, where travelers need to walk a distance to reach their destination, or even the space shifts in the heavenly mystic dimension, which require adjustments for spatial deviations, the Frog Leap Formation has 0 deviation and cannot be intercepted. It's almost like a direct leap without any process, Tang Xinlian explained. However, the energy required for this formation is enormous, and the energy itself is quite peculiar. Peculiar energy? Ing Xiao asked, puzzled. You'll understand when the time comes, and you needn't worry about finding such energy because it's all around us, Tang Xinlian smiled and said. All around us? Meanwhile, approximately 20 million miles away from the 4 profound continents, there was a continent entirely covered by black and white thunder. This was Nine Thunder Continent, one of the first lands captured by the Martial Realm. The Black Divine Thunder and White Divine Thunder, such levels of thunder, are harmless to Earth's sovereign-level experts, but they pose a danger to those below the 3rd grade of sovereigns. Moreover, several thunder spirits have already formed here, and even 5th grade sovereigns must be wary of their power. Boom! In the sky above, 2 massive bolts of thunder, one black and one white, intertwined as they descended and struck a towering figure. This figure exuded the powerful majesty of a divine beast, with black and white divine lightning flashing between his muscular frame, accompanied by the fierce roar of a tiger. It was Little Yin. After years of refining his body with divine thunder, Little Yan's strength alone was now enough to rival a 5th-grade sovereign. Suddenly, a violent thunderclap rang out across the sky. The clouds churned, and from within them, a massive figure seemed to roar past. In the next moment, with a howl, the clouds were torn apart. Roar! A massive, 10,000-foot-wide gap in the clouds was torn open, and a giant figure swept down. It spread its enormous black wings, blocking the sun. In its giant claws, it tightly gripped a streak of lightning, the black divine thunder spirit. The figure was none other than the heavenly demon mink, Little Mink. The enormous heavenly demon mink descended from the sky, its grip tight on the black divine thunder spirit. The thunder spirit fought back desperately. It was a sentient being after all. "Stupid tiger. I got one. Quick, smash it." Little Mink shouted at Little Yin below. Hearing this, Little Yan's tightly shut eyes snapped open. In that instant, a violent wind howled across the land, and spiritual energy surged. Little Yan's body quickly expanded, and in the blink of an eye, he transformed into a massive, nearly 10,000-foot-tall black tiger. The oppressive force of the tiger's presence slammed into the ground, creating a massive rift. Roar! Little Yin let out a mighty roar and pounced toward the black divine thunder spirit in Little Mink's claws. His powerful paw, with the terrifying strength that would make any 4th-grade sovereign tremble, struck the thunder spirit. Boom! The immense force caused the ground to collapse, and surrounding mountains crumbled. In the center of the collapse was the now dimmed black divine thunder spirit. But before it could recover, Little Yan's other paw came crashing down on it, followed by strike after strike, causing the thunder spirit to explode in waves of black lightning. "Enough, enough, you stupid tiger, hold it down. It's my turn." Little Mink shouted as the thunder spirit grew weaker. She quickly handed it over to Little Yin and began to pound it herself. They both remembered how, when they first arrived at the 9 Thunder Continent for training, they were only at the little 3rd Heaven Realm. Back then, the thunder spirit had nearly destroyed them. Now that they had gained strength, it was time to get some revenge. Buzz! As Little Mink relentlessly struck the thunder spirit, a dazzling light suddenly erupted from it. In that moment, Little Mink realized something was wrong and immediately shoved Little Yin aside, quickly retreating. "This thing is going to self-destruct," Little Mink shouted. Boom! Sure enough, just as her words fell, a brilliant thunderclap spread across several thousand miles. Then, with a massive roar, the thunder spirit exploded. Meanwhile, thousands of miles away, atop a mountain, another figure sat cross-legged, undergoing the refining process with the black and white divine thunder. It was Qingji. Watching the turbulent sky, he couldn't help but shake his head. Lin Dong's 2 brothers were truly extraordinary. In just a few years, they had progressed from the little 3rd heaven to the 4th-grade sovereign realm. With the power of divine beasts, they could even contend with 5th-grade sovereigns. Yet, he had only reached the peak of the 2nd-grade sovereign. Buzz! At that moment, in a certain part of the 9 Thunder Continent, the space twisted, and 2 figures appeared. It was Lin Dong and Ling Qingzhu. "It's Big Brother, he's here." The arrival of Lin Dong was immediately sensed by Little Mink and Little Yin in midair. Their massive forms shrank, transforming into human shapes as they rushed towards Lin Dong. "Heh, they're here." Lin Dong smiled faintly as he looked up at the sky. "Are you really going with them?" Ling Qingzhu asked. "Building these armies was supposed to be their responsibility, but I don't trust them, so I might as well go along," Lin Dong replied. "Besides, the sacred drum Heavenly Sovereign fell because of an expert from the extraterritorial evil clan." "Are you saying an evil demon at the Heavenly Emperor level?" Qingzhu asked. "I don't know, but the evil demon in that ruin might have already been wiped out by a powerful member of the Myriad Spirit Divine clan during their scan." "Of course, that's just a guess," Lin Dong said. "Let's hope so," Qingzhu replied. Whoosh! Whoosh! The sound of breaking air echoed from beyond the sky, and soon two figures appeared, swiftly cutting through the heavens. It was Little Mink and Little Yin. "Hey, big brother, you're here?" Little Yin said, grinning at Lin Dong, then turned to Qingzhu, sister-in-law. "How's the martial realm situation going recently?" "Everything's going smoothly," Qingzhu answered, then looked at Lin Dong beside her. "Tell them about it." "Tell us? What's going on?" Little Mink asked, puzzled. "Last time, you mentioned forming an army. It's about transforming the Tiger Devourer army and creating a new Demon Mink Guard, right?" Lin Dong said. "Yeah, but conventional armies aren't very useful in the current martial realm, so we need to make these two armies at the battle formation army level." Little Mink said, then paused and looked at Lin Dong. "Do you have a way to form a battle formation army?" "I do," Lin Dong said, flipping his palm. The blueprint of the sacred drum, Heavenly Sovereign's ruins, appeared and was tossed to Little Mink. Little Mink quickly caught the blueprint and opened it, while Little Yin leaned in to take a look. At first, they didn't understand the significance of the blueprint, but after several breaths, they realized who the sacred drum Heavenly Sovereign was. "Wow, big brother, how did you get this blueprint?" Little Yin said, incredulously. "It's a long story. Our current task is to find the sacred drum," Lin Dong said. "Then, does anyone else know about this?" Little Mink asked. "Even if they know, they wouldn't dare come," Lin Dong replied, casually waving his hand. The space around them twisted, and a spatial passage appeared, leading back to the four profound continents. "Let's go. I'll go with you this time." With that, Lin Dong took Qingzhu's hand and stepped into the spatial passage. Behind them, Little Mink and Little Yin exchanged puzzled glances. They clearly didn't understand what Lin Dong meant by "even if they know, they wouldn't dare come." "Second brother, stop thinking about it. Let's go," Little Yin said to Little Mink, then followed Lin Dong into the passage. Little Mink followed suit. As they entered the passage, it began to shrink and slowly disappear. What awaited them on the other side was a new journey. Martial realm, four profound continents. Buzz. The space above trembled as four figures emerged. It was Lin Dong and the others, having used the spatial passage to return in less than 10 minutes from tens of thousands of miles away. "Let's go. The teleportation array should be ready now," Lin Dong said, and immediately shot toward the Dao domain in the eastern part of the four profound continents. Qingzhu and Little Yin hurriedly followed. A few minutes later, a massive light shield, covering hundreds of thousands of miles, appeared before them. Without any obstacle, they passed through the shield and entered the Dao domain. Meanwhile, tens of thousands of miles away, the Frog Leap Formation had been carefully arranged by Tang Xinlian and the others. Over 100 supreme-level powerhouses stood at the edges of the massive formation, waiting for Lin Dong and the others to arrive. Following Tang Xinlian's instructions, they still had one last task: to gather the immense energy required for the Frog Leap Formation. However, this was not a problem for them. On a mountain peak near the teleportation array, Tang Xinlian and the others stood. They looked at the completed formation before turning their gaze to the sky. "This formation is done. Should we notify the martial ancestor and the realm lords?" A man behind Tang Xinlian asked. "No need to notify them," Tang Xinlian replied, her eyes fixed on the distant horizon. "Because they're already here." Whoosh! Whoosh! As soon as Tang Xinlian finished speaking, several sounds of breaking air came from the sky ahead. Then, several flashes of light sped toward them. It was, of course, Lin Dong and his group. "Are you ready?" Lin Dong asked. "Yes." Tang Xinlian nodded, then asked, "Are we leaving now?" "Yes, we don't have much time to waste," Lin Dong replied lightly, then smiled at her. "I remember you had a talent for commanding armies back when we were in the Chaos Demon Sea. What's the matter? Don't you plan to organize an army as well?" Hearing Lin Dong's words, Tang Xinlian shot him a glance. "You keep throwing me one task after another. Right now, I'm still busy with the map department's matters. I'm swamped. Do you think I have the time to organize a big army? Plus, in terms of strength, you guys have surpassed me by miles." "Sorry." Lin Dong sighed deeply upon hearing this, and then noticed Ling Qingzhu extending her hand to Tang Xinlian as a gesture of sincerity. Seeing this, Tang Xinlian also reached out, shaking hands with Ling Qingzhu. Thank you for your hard work, Ling Qingzhu said. She knew that many things had been done by Tang Xinlian to help Lin Dong on her own, an unspoken form of support. Let's talk about such words after the martial realm becomes a true top-tier powerhouse, Tang Xinlian replied, pointing to a nearby teleportation array. The formation is complete, but it's a one-way trip. This means you can reach the destination directly, but you'll need to rely on yourselves to come back. Where exactly is the destination? Lin Dong asked. It's located at the edge of the far north in the Great Thousand Worlds, Tang Xinlian answered. The far north? Isn't that the territory of the Ice Spirit Clan? So close? Lin Dong said. It's not as close as you think, Tang Xinlian replied, flipping her palm. A large map appeared, slowly unfolding. Soon, an image covered with countless black dots appeared in front of Lin Dong and the others. What are these black dots? Did you accidentally spill ink while drawing the map? Little Yin, who was standing behind Lin Dong, asked as he looked at the map in Tang Xinlian's hands. No, these black dots represent lands that are no smaller than the Four Profound Continent, Tang Xinlian said. The Great Thousand Worlds spans hundreds of billions of miles. Do you think a continent the size of several million miles compares to that? Even the largest supercontinents in this map are only the size of a fingernail. She pointed to the northern part of the map, which was about 2 meters in size, and indicated a group of black dots about half a meter away from the center. This is the Martial Realm. Just above that is the Ice Spirit Clan, Tang Xinlian added. As her finger moved upwards, countless smaller black dots appeared. What surprised Little Yin and the others was that, on this map, the Martial Realm and the Ice Spirit Clan were only a fingernail's distance apart, though in reality, that distance was several 100 million miles. As for the edge of the far north you're heading to, after passing through the Ice Spirit Clan, you'll need to go further north. As she spoke, Tang Xinlian's finger moved again, and the distance was so great that Lin Dong was stunned. This place on the map was almost half a meter away from the Ice Spirit Clan, which meant it was dozens of times farther than the distance between the Martial Realm and the Ice Spirit Clan. Tang Xinlian's finger finally stopped moving, and the black dots there were very sparse. This indicated that there were not many continents in that area, and it likely signified a desolate region. She pointed to a tiny black dot near the edge of the map. This is the place. I've checked the information on it. There's very little known, but we do know its size. How big is it? Lin Dong asked. It's about 6 or 7 times the size of the Four Profound Continent, almost the same size as the entire heavenly mystic dimension, Tang Xinlian said. This place is extremely close to the edge of the Great Thousand World. What lies beyond the edge? Is it the land of the extraterritorial evil clan? Lin Dong asked. No, it's a membrane that wraps around the entire Great Thousand World. No one has ever been able to cross it, so no one knows what lies beyond, Tang Xinlian replied. By the way, because the place you're going to is close to this membrane, people also call that region the Membrane Land. Upon hearing this, Lin Dong nodded. It seemed that this so-called Membrane Land was no simple place, considering no one had ever managed to cross it. But it could also be that there was nothing beyond it. Then let's go, Lin Dong said, turning to look at the teleportation array below, which was slowly activating. Is this the frog leap formation that comes with it? Yes, it's a very advanced type of teleportation array, Tang Xinlian answered. Whoosh! At that moment, a sharp sound of air being split reached their ears, and an elderly man dressed in red flew toward them. It was Fenyunzi, the person Lin Dong had invited to join the Martial Realm on Auction Continent. Lin Dong, my young brother, where have you been these past few days? I came here and couldn't find you, Fenyunzi said as he landed in front of Lin Dong. Fen Elder, are you in such a hurry? Is there something wrong? Lin Dong asked when he saw Fenyunzi rushing toward him. Nothing serious. I've just been bored staying here, Fenyunzi said. By the way, aren't you going to the ruins of the sacred drum, Heavenly Sovereign? Elder Fun, now that the Martial Realm is quite busy with various affairs, I think it's best if you stay out of this one. Didn't Elder Song mention that there are 6 continents in the western part of the Martial Realm that could be brought under our control? You could go check them out, Lin Dong said with a smile. I knew you'd try to pass the task on to me. Fenyunzi replied, giving Lin Dong a knowing look as if he had seen through everything, before laughing and continuing, fortunately, I already cleared up the situation in the martial realm with Elder Song. As for the 6 continents in the west, I've already got them all under control. You'd better believe me. I've already recruited 23 Supreme Stage Warriors for the martial realm. Back then, I even dealt with 12 little Supreme who opposed me, knocking them down without mercy. Lin Dong and the others. How about it? Shouldn't you reward me a little? All right then, take me to stroll around the relics of the sacred drum, Heavenly Sovereign, Fenyunzi said. Fine, Elder Fawn. You can come along to the relics, Lin Dong said with a helpless sigh. He then turned to Tang Xinlian. Prepare the teleportation array. Tang Xinlian nodded, turning to the massive light array below. She waved to the more than 100 Supreme Warriors standing outside the formation, and they immediately began to take action. This frog leap formation doesn't require the usual spiritual energy of heaven and earth, Tang Xinlian said. No spiritual energy? Lin Dong asked, puzzled. Boom. Just as Lin Dong finished speaking, a loud rumbling sound echoed. The ground beneath them began to shake, and the 100 Supreme Warriors flew toward the peaks of the surrounding mountains, each using their power to uproot the towering mountains, carrying them toward the center of the mountain range where the teleportation array was located. What are they doing? Lin Dong asked. The reason I said the frog leap formation doesn't use the spiritual energy of heaven and earth is because it's powered by a much more ordinary form of energy, which is material energy, Tang Xinlian explained. Material energy? Lin Dong frowned as he looked at the Supreme Warriors, lifting mountains and heading toward the teleportation array. As he watched, one of the 5th grade Supreme Warriors hoisted a mountain over 100 feet high on his shoulder and stood atop the array. He glanced at the slowly rotating light array beneath him, and in the next moment, he threw the mountain directly into it. Lin Dong was stunned. Was this guy trying to destroy the teleportation array? Or perhaps, boom, the 100-foot-tall mountain, though not very large, came crashing down toward the teleportation array from the sky. However, just as it neared the array, a burst of soft, pale light erupted from the formation, rapidly expanding in the sky and engulfing the entire mountain. The scene within the pale light shocked Lin Dong and the others. Buzz. White light began to appear at the edges of the mountain, growing denser and thicker like a milky gas. Lin Dong quickly realized that it was actually high-concentration energy. As the milky gas increased in volume, the mountain itself began to shrink, while the array below seemed to exert a gravitational force, absorbing and devouring all of the white gaseous energy. It was then that Lin Dong realized the teleportation array required pure material energy, a conventional energy converted from matter.